Hello and welcome to the Coder Kids podcast, episode number 28. Today on the podcast, like every other week, we decode and decrypt technology for parents of technology-interested kiddos. So I'm James Thornick, as always. This is Jeff Ward, founder of Coder Kids.
We are excited to be here today. We've got a great interview with a game developer, Sam Coster, who is part of the team at Butterscotch Shenanigans, which is a really awesome small team that develops games.
Yeah,
You
a
can
quick
find
shout
it.
out.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, a quick shout out to my aunt and Real Merit Craft for kind of getting us into Levelhead in the beginning. And another quick shout out to Pure Nix, who made an insanely difficult level that I finally was able to beat and helping me out with his stream, trying to jump off ricocheted eggs. Anyway, that'll make more sense later on in the podcast. But
yeah, stick around. This is a very interesting conversation. I think especially for kids and parents who kind of have that thing in their brain, like, I want to create a game. I want to make a game. It's like, all right, let's talk about it. So we talk about that a lot with Sam and a lot of other interesting topics in the game dev ecosystem. So we're excited to jump into it. James, any quick updates from you?
yeah, I just been playing all of the Butterscotch Shenanigans games. That's what I've been doing with my free time. They're a bunch of fun. So
Man, that's awesome.
And we did a photo shoot this morning. So other than that,
that's great, James. Over here, no, I don't. It's been a busy week. Lots of things going on with Coder Kids and other business interests that I have. But all I got to say is today's Friday. It's snowing, and I'm feeling pretty good. So let's dive in.
All right, sounds good. And transition. All right, welcome to the interview portion of the Coder Kids podcast. Today on the show, we have Sam Coster. Did I pronounce that right?
You did, yeah.
Okay, great. And Sam is the marketing guy for Butterscotch Shenanigans. He's the chief creative officer. He loves people, does some business development, and was featured on the Forbes 30 Under 30 in 2017. So
I just had to bring it up.
How do you feel about that, Sam?
My dark past.
Congratulations.
Secret.
He had shorter hair back then. I think I had longer hair. We Jeff and I might have had longer hair.
I had about the same.
Jeff, he's kind of plateaued there with hair length.
A lot has changed because of the pandemic. So I was just trying to, just roll with the energy this last year.
Yeah.
Do something weird.
You're not the only one. So that's been a lot of fun. So, yeah, we're really excited. We've not had any proper game developers on who are actually actively selling games. We've interviewed a couple of different either tech CEOs or developers of different applications, but not any like true game developers who at least are profitable. So we actually haven't interviewed anyone who's not profitable either. So you're really the first game developer, and we've had on a couple of streamers and stuff. And I reached out because I do want to tell the story because my aunt reached out to me and she said, "Hey, do you know what this Levelhead game is? My son wants to get it, and I want to know if it's like kid friendly and like what's in it." And I said, we do these kid friendly game reviews where I ask people to recommend games that they want to know kind of what's on the inside, and we do this dive into games where we tell them, what's the adult material in it, what's like the language look like, and what's the violence. And I'll give them just a 0 to 10 score. So I won't even give it an age recommendation. I know like a lot of agencies will give like, at the age of 17 or something miraculously like gets the green light, whereas like the year before it didn't. So instead of that, I just give parents the tools and like the specific rating according to like the scale that we've set up, and then they can choose like, hey, yeah, is this game like good for them or not? And also it features a little bit of the gameplay and stuff like that. So I said, yeah, well, we have a budget. So I bought Levelhead. I started playing it, and I got really
In.
sucked in. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it was great. It was really great. And so I did a
And
short, yeah,
and Sam is the one who developed like the creative
the art.
pieces for that. Is that
Yep.
correct?
Yeah, so I do
I mean,
art.
do you have a team that works with you, or like in terms of the creative piece, or is it just you?
So yeah, the structure of our studio is a little weird because it's me and my two brothers who are the co-founders of the studio, and then we have 3 employees. And so the way we think about it is kind of like structurally is almost more like a kind of like a surgical team. So my brother Seth and I basically make the game. So I do all the art and then do a lot of the what you call it content design. So in Levelhead's case, made all the levels for the campaign, that sort of thing. And then Seth and I work together, and Adam as well. So he's the third brother on kind of those higher level design components. So whether it's how exactly to go about approaching the concept, how exactly to implement X, Y, or Z, and then while Seth handles all the gameplay, I handle then the art, and we share design stuff. Adam does all the web and server architecture stuff, which in Levelhead's case, of course, is very important, sharing these levels. And then we have our 3 wonderful employees who do basically the rest of the pipeline, right? So distribution, getting the game onto Switch, onto PC, onto whatever else, administration, and then also a QA testing. So we have a full-time QA tester who plays the game all
That's
the time
Jordan,
to make
right?
sure it's correct. Yeah, Jordan. Uh-huh.
So Jordan does quality.
Yeah.
Sure, he does like the platform.
Yeah.
Like he makes
so
sure that
his-
it's good on all the platforms.
Mhm. Yeah, and then Sampeda is actually my sister-in-law as well. So Seth's
Oh, okay.
wife. And
I was
she,
wondering, it's like her last name's, Coster. So I
Yep.
was like, wait.
Yep. Yeah. So she's been a fantastic asset for the team. She started just doing like our back end administration stuff. So all your usual, handling taxes, handling storefront stuff, and has grown over time to do more, actually handle more of the marketing stuff as well as marketing, writing the marketing copy and some of those other pieces like that. So that's kind
She
of how the
emailed
team's
me
structured.
as well. So
Yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
that's right.
and seems super friendly and
Yeah,
like
she's
very immediate. I mean, I sent y'all an email, and like within like a day and a half or something, I'd received an email back. I was pretty surprised.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah, we don't mess around,
she,
We're doing
she's
stuff.
on
Very
she's on
serious
top of
business.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sam, I want to dive in with a question, kind of a big topic, but we're the Coder Kids podcast, and so we teach a lot of kids like how to do coding, and
Mhm.
also we have some gaming summer camps and gaming programs that we do. We've interacted with a lot of kids, and every single one tells us like, when I grow up, I want to be a game designer, or I want to make games.
Quite a few.
And I think,
Yep.
well, I shouldn't say every single one, but yeah, there are tons. There are a lot of them. And, for me, when I was growing up in the 90s, I thought I would love to design games. And I'm sure, James, you've thought that same thing at some
Oh
point.
yeah. Yeah.
But here we are. We end up in these, desk jobs.
Hey,
So
I like my desk. Don't diminish
I
this
love what I
desk.
do. I love what I do.
Mhm,
But,
He didn't hear
if
anything. It's fine.
Don't listen, desk. Don't listen to him.
if you had some advice that you could give to, first of all, parents of these kids, and then second to the kids themselves, like what would you say as someone who's kind of reached that pinnacle?
Well, I think I appreciate that you believe I've reached the pinnacle for one.
I was gonna say
There we are.
pinnacle is like
I
a
don't
tough
know.
word.
Far off from the peak, my friend.
Hey,
I'm getting
maybe it's a really low peak, but you've reached it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's one of those like base camps on the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Step one. No, I guess first off to the kids. I mean, to speak to our experience growing up. Again, there's the 3 of us brothers who started the studio, and we grew up in a small town in Iowa, in the Midwest, and didn't have access to, most of the stuff that you would need to become a game developer or a game designer, what it basically be associated at all. And frankly, if their parents are listening to the podcast, or if they're, kids, if they as a kid are listening to the podcast or are doing some of these coder camps or whatever else, you're so far ahead of even where we were at the same sort of age level, that my biggest and best advice would be to just to keep on pushing on the stuff that you find fun and the skills that you find interesting. I think everybody starts off saying that they want to do game design because that's the piece that people who don't have any current skills can most obviously understand, because it seems like it's just thinking about stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's about coming up with ideas. That also, unfortunately, is the spot where, because the work is so invisible, the experience is
Yeah.
what, yeah, like the experience of playing a game, like that experience is what, like it happens inside your brain as a player. It's a completely invisible craft. And so it's also, frankly, one of the things that I think most people think they are better at or will be better at than they end up being good at, because it's a really tough feedback loop, right? And actually, in order to enact any of your designs, you have to either be able to or have people around you to implement those ideas. And that comes into code, that comes into art, comes into music, right? So my biggest suggestion for kids and then for parents along that dimension is to realize that design is a thing that you only get to play with if you have a technical skill of some capacity. Could be art, it could be even writing, it could be the programming side of things, could be music. But it makes it far easier to do that design aspect if you have some of the technical skills to be able to implement parts of your design. Because an unimplemented design is just an idea, and it's not doing anything for anybody.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And this is where we reach the big hiccup too, when we're talking to kids about this and they say, I want to design a game. And it's like, well, yeah, you have to learn a technical skill, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then they start like getting into the technical skill and they're like, this is hard.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, some people step up to that challenge, and that's ultimately what, people who become professionals, they, step up to the challenge and then they push through it and they become good at it. But I think, I don't know, maybe this is getting more philosophical, but some of the younger generation is, and I shouldn't just say the younger generation because I'm sure it was the case when we were kids too, but like you see something, it's hard, kind of back off of it.
Yeah, I think that's just human nature, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. And I think it's a little bit weird too, I think, because parents get very concerned about kids playing games and about the fact that kids are oftentimes so into games. They're like, how come you can't be so into something else, And I think there's a really deep want oftentimes from parents, and speaking from our experience as like my family, there's a really deep want from parents to convert what they feel like is a non-productive activity into a productive activity. So they're like, you love games, why don't you go make them, and like hoping that that's gonna pan out. But the reality is that making games and playing games is completely different. They are not remotely the same. Game development is essentially like blending every single engineering discipline with every single artistic discipline to make one thing.
And then trying to balance it.
Yeah, which
and
it's
then
like
trying to sell it, right?
it's the reason why we love it, because it's so hard and there's so many things to think about all the time. Like we're never bored, never for a moment. But that's a big ask for a child. Go conquer all the disciplines, child.
For sure.
Kids just like, I just wanted to play Minecraft today. Can you leave me alone, please?
Yeah. Coding a single Minecraft mod is a little bit easier than creating your entirely separate new, game. Yeah, for sure. I think if you think about the amount of content, I think about this a lot. I don't know why, but the amount of content that can be consumed in a minute and how many minutes went into that minute of like play or enjoyment.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's so hard to calculate because before the game is released, right? It's like 1,000,000 to 1. Like all the minutes, and no one's played it out, outside, bless his soul, Jordan, who gets to play all the minutes before it's like quality. And then, after it gets past Jordan and I don't even know all the things that go into marketing and setting it up, then the people get to play it. And then that the minutes, like I guess if you're weighing them, then it shifts. The game like Crashlands or Levelhead that have done pretty well, and I know Crashlands has been out since like 2016. When the hell, something like that.
2016, yeah.
And that was the first game that I played from your studio, and
yeah,
of course I didn't know what the studio was. I just an Epic Games free game, so
That's how we get you. Those free games.
I
Piling them up.
I
That's
did
how you
want to
make the
ask
big
you about
bucks.
that later,
Mhm.
but now I'm assuming you'll have better data on this than I do, but n- now you have way more people that have spent time playing the game than you've actually spent developing, and so that must be interesting. And then you talk about tech debt. Gosh, there's so many questions in there. But I did want to ask you, as a super quick aside, what's it like, dealing with Epic? I shouldn't say dealing with, because that sounds like a problem already off the bat. But how is it like working with Epic to put your game for free? Like, how does that process even work? Has it been really good for you?
Yeah.
Does it have some downsides?
I mean, the only downside really is the fact that you have to figure out how to get your game hooked up to that platform, right? So the
Okay.
downside really falls on Sure, to be honest. Like one of our guys, we're just like
Yeah.
figure it out, and then falls on QA, and then falls on
Okay.
our administration as well. So it's like most of the work for those things ends up coming out on like basically the distribution and kind of the administration side of the team. But no, in terms of work, like Epic was super fun to work with, super easy to work with.
Nice.
They're very responsive, and because there's not so many games on there, we actually know the people who put our store page together.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We send them
Yeah.
materials, and they're like, "Hey, here it is. Does this look good?" No one's ever said that to me on any platform.
We don't care what it looks like. Yeah.
So no, honestly, it was great. And the big thing for us with Crashlands, Crashlands, like I said, it's 5 years old. So what we're looking to do with that game is really, we just want to keep on expanding the audience for it. In preparation for sort of our next big project, currently in the works, which is basically a follow up to Crashlands. And so we're really looking to just expand that audience in a big way. And we've talked about this on the podcast a few times. So it's not like a super secret, though we haven't formally announced it yet.
Okay.
But it's one of those things where games have a life cycle, right? So kind of like you were saying, there's this you work on them for anywhere from 3 months to years. You launch it, and then there's this, depending on how the game does, there can be a continued development and building phase on the same game once players have it, and that can go on indefinitely or just for a short time, and then you pivot to the next product and put it kind of in a state where you're happy with kind of its earning potential, happy with what it's doing every week, and maybe have some future plans for it, but you're not actively like engaging on it. And so Crashlands is very much in that latter state where it's, we don't add more stuff to it generally unless we have to. But we definitely want to keep on bringing people in because people love that game, and it's done really well for us in terms of bringing people to the studio and having people experience what games look like when we make them, what we're all about on that side of things.
I haven't played Crashlands yet, so I'm looking forward to diving into that.
Yeah.
Make sure you have like an extra 40 hours laying around, because if it grabs you, you're just it's one of those, like, it's just going to hold you for a while.
Yeah. It's got a little bit of a bunch of different games. It's got a little bit of Minecraft. It's got a little bit with like the crafting aspect. It's an ARPG. It looks like, and I don't want to say this because Sam, your art style doesn't really look like anyone else's that I know of, but it looks a tiny bit like Don't Starve. And the combat systems, I think, interesting, but not like overwhelming. And then it's got like a whimsical storyline too. I think if I had to like review it in a nutshell, that's James's version. I stayed up late last night playing that. So
there you go. It's very dangerous.
It was a lot of fun.
So Sam, once a game is made, and you kind of talked a little bit about kind of the different technical parts that different people are working on in the studio. Like, I know a few people who have built games as well, like fully fledged out games. But like, what sets apart a game that is successful and from a game that isn't? Like, do you think that it has a lot to do with luck? Do you think it has to do with like the beauty? Because we talk a lot about it in terms of like YouTube videos or even just websites. Like, there's a quality component and there's like a quantity component. So you could have a studio that's releasing game after game after game, one every 6 months or something, but they're kind of like lower quality. And then you can have ones that like release one every 5 years, but it's like insane quality. I mean, what do you think sets apart the game that does well?
I think this is a really tricky question. I mean, this is
It's
sort of
deep.
like,
I
yeah,
know.
it's
This
basically
is the
the
million
question.
dollar question. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess the short answer, if I had an answer, I mean, I'd be just like on a moon base with my piles of cash, you know.
Because that's
But
what I do with my piles of
I
cash.
mean, yeah, you got to build a moon base. But I think, all of the companies that have all the data, even that have tried to, like, so Steam, for example, made the people who run basically the Amazon for games,
Yeah.
uh, all the data on all the games that are selling, who's playing what, whatever else, and they go and make this game called Artifact, and I mean, it did not do well, right? So the fact that you could be in
I
a
haven't
position
heard
where
of
you
the
have,
game actually, so
there you
I
go.
wasn't like,
It was their card game slash MOBA thing. It's the whole thing, but
card and MOBA.
I can't
That's
remember
ambitious.
exactly. Yeah, I believe it was, oh no, sorry, it was their like Hearthstone equivalent thing. Sorry, not MOBA.
Okay.
Um, but they have essentially infinite resources, right? Because they're making 30% of everybody in the games industry's money because of their platform. And then they also have all the data about what games sell, where, how, what, all the breakdowns. And they couldn't do it. So it's one of those things where I think it's impossible to know exactly what's going to do well. And in fact, you've seen this play out on all the major storefronts. They've been moving over the last decade from really intense curation, where only the people on the platforms get to decide who gets on there, and you have to have a publisher to even be able to talk to anyone, to essentially a free for all, because all the platforms have recognized that they cannot tell what is going to be successful before it is successful, which is
Right.
unfortunate in a lot of ways. Because I think it leaves a lot of room to spend a great deal of time and energy on a project that should be killed, right? Where you should try to do something else for a while. But it's also very fortunate in the way that there are these breakout successes that no one saw coming. So I think there's,
Flappy Bird.
yeah, I mean, Flappy Bird's a big one, but even stuff that like looks ugly, like it just doesn't look good by default, but then plays incredibly, like it just has something special about it that makes people pay attention.
I mean, I
So,
kind of put Among Us in that category.
oh,
I
100%,
mean,
yeah.
Well, and
it's
it
not
was
really.
firmly in that category of not being popular for a while. Like it had
Yeah.
been released and nothing happened with it
Mhm.
remotely, and then something. I don't know what was the impetus, but it could have been
It's a
like
big streamer who
coronavirus.
picked it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, big streamer picked it up, and of course the pandemic is happening, so everyone's like trying to hang out with friends but can't.
Yeah.
So a game where you can hang out with your friends and stab them just sort of meets everyone's needs. But yeah, it's one of those things where I think it makes it harder, because actually the case of Among Us is really interesting, because you're talking about a dev team who 2 or 3 months before the game blew up, they had announced that they were done working on it, because they were like, it's not going, like we can't quite get it to go anymore, so we're gonna like work on something else or a sequel or something. And the fact that you can go from that state of things as a studio, where you're like fully pivoted over to working on another project, and then have to come back because a streamer picked it up and now it just exploded. Like the game did not change. And this is an important note, right? The game did not change. So
Yeah.
so is there an element of luck? Absolutely. Is there an element of timing? Absolutely. Like games that launched, on the Switch, the first 6 months that the Switch came out, that were independent games, did very well because there were so few games on that platform. Now, not so much, right? Switch is not necessarily selling super hot when it comes to independent development. And so timing is a big, big part of the whole thing. And that's the most unfortunate piece, because you have to decide what game you're making, decide what platforms it's going to be targeting when you start making it, oftentimes 2 to 5 years in advance of it coming out, right? So you're doing this like
it's
weird market
crazy.
prediction where you're like, oh, I hope things don't change that much, and they always do, right? So luck is a big part of it.
And that's like you have to spend money today. Like that's a tough
Big
and,
investment. Yeah.
And that's not even talking about the psychological warfare that is marketing that y'all were talking about last week on your podcast, right? Like,
Absolutely, yeah.
When you guys started out, did you seek any investment, or did you guys just like have a lot of time on your hands and you just sat down together?
Yeah, we had my brother Seth and I had been working at a video game studio actually here in St. Louis for about 6 months. It was my first job at a college. He had actually just dropped out, speaking to all the parents out there, dropped out of an MBA JD program, off the steady path, and into working at this game studio. And we worked there for about 6 or 8 months, something like that. And then decided like, oh, we know enough. Let's go do our own thing. We can do it faster. Let's go start our own company. And we didn't have we didn't have external capital. We just had saved up money, and because we're young, we're privileged, coming from like a middle class, upper middle class background, didn't have student loans to worry about. So like all that stuff was going for us in the way that made it possible for us to take the time. So we just had we had not very much money at all. I mean, in my cost of living, it was maybe $1,200 a month in St. Louis, and so that's all I needed to cover. So we actually had months of runway. We had 6 months of runway when we quit. And so we said, okay, we can make 2 games in that time. Or I guess we have to make 2 games because we were sure the first one's going to fail because we don't know what we're doing. So
Sure.
let's at least get 2 cracks at bat, hoping that the first one will make enough money to kind of extend the runway a tiny bit. The first one failed pretty hard. It's called Tau Fight 2, The Monocle of Destiny. It's on mobile still. It's fun. It's good. It's a good weird Zelda twin stick shooter thing.
James probably played it.
Yeah, I've played all your games now.
Yeah. What did you think of
Yeah.
Tau Fight?
Yeah, I mean, it reminded me a lot of Binding of Isaac.
Mhm,
I thought, again, the clever writing and so the guy
You like
goes
just
around
dumb
with
jokes.
monocle.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're hilarious. I'd never played a game on mobile where the monocled guy says Quetzalcoatl when something, explodes.
Mhm.
When he shot, I guess, a frog out of his eye, technically. Is it
Yeah,
out of the monocle?
it's a hard thing to explain. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like it's more like you gotta experience it. But
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun. I mean,
Yeah.
so
So like, I
I
think
played that Roid Rage, which I think is called Rampage now. Roid
depends on which
Rampage on
platform you're
iPhone.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
on iPhone, because I looked up Roid Rage and like they're like, "Do you mean Road Rage?" I'm like, "No."
No.
And then Flop Rocket, Quadrupus. Oh my gosh, that is hard to say.
Quadrupus Rampage. Yeah, that's a good one.
Quadrupus Rampage instead of an octopus. It's a quadrupus.
He's only got 4 legs, so that's because I
Can't
didn't
call
want
him
to
an
animate
octopus.
them to balance
Yeah.
with you.
So, and then that
So
one
you-
again. Go ahead, Jeff.
So you were able to knock out 2 games in 6 months. Is that
Yep, 2 games in 6 months. That was Tau Fight and Quadrupus. Quadrupus we made free because Tau Fight got pirated, so it had a 99% piracy rate. So we made literally like a couple $1,000s for our 3 months of combined effort on the thing. And then we saw the player numbers and we were like, wow, I guess we made a free game and didn't know it. So let's do that on purpose, instead of complaining about it. So we did. We made a free game with
That hurts a lot.
Quadrupus. It hurt a lot. I can't tell you how much that hurt. Very painful, because especially when you get support tickets from people and they're pirates and you're like, how dare you? You already took my product, and now you're like, can you help me with my corrupt save because I sideloaded this on a weird tablet? And I'm like, no. Leave me alone. Yeah, there's a lot of that. A lot of that pain's definitely wrapped up in there. But Quadrupus turned out. I still really like the game. It's very fun. It's sort of a Diablo dungeon crawling thing with no walls. I guess you're a quadrupus diving through depths of the ocean, hitting fish with various weapons. And
Start with a tennis racket, and then you move to like a random totem, and then like golf clubs and like, all sorts
anything.
of stuff.
There's
It's-
guitars. There's other animals that you hit animals with. It's just a lot of weird
It's
stuff
great.
in those early days. But yeah, so Quadrupus did well enough for us that we were able to basically support me, and then Sampada, who of course now is actually in the company, supported Seth for that next kind of chunk while we were working on Crashlands. And that took 2 years. So Crashlands is a 2-year project. And Adam joined the studio about a year into that one. And then we've been just kind of cruising.
That's awesome.
What about where did Flop Rocket and Road Rage come in on that?
So both of those, this is one of those, like, it's technically not a secret, but I know my brothers feel kind of funny saying it because Roid Rampage took 8 hours to make. and then we came back later, like, I think maybe spent another, like, maybe 8 hours, like, adding some other updated graphics and stuff to it. Flop Rocket was like a 2-day project. And so those were ones that we actually took as breaks in the middle of Crashlands development. So
Okay.
this is sort of the problem with, like, when you're working on a huge game, kind of what we were talking about earlier, there's so many disciplines involved in the bigger a game is, though I guess the way to think about a game is a big game is really just a bunch of small games that are stacked together and interact really effectively. And so really what you're talking about when you're launching a game like Crashlands or something of like a bigger scale is just you're actually designing multiple games that all need to kind of like a puzzle piece click into the right spot. And so getting those things to a point where the work that you do in any given day feels like it's adding a lot can sometimes be really hard, right? Because you're still so far away most of the time. Crashlands, for example, like wasn't really fun for more than about 20 minutes until we added the story, which was 6 months before we launched it, right? So like year and a half where you're working on this thing and you're like, oh boy, I hope this gets fun at some point, because like it's not going to survive. Uh, there's a lot of that kind of waiting around for things to kind of click in and work better. And so, yeah, I think with those longer form games, it's really nice to take a break and just be like, let's bang out over a weekend a simple arcade game with like simple controls, basic loops, upgrade system, and see how fun we can make it, and then just do that. And the thing is, like, our studio kind of started in this game jam methodology, the 48-hour events
Yeah.
where you build games. Um, so it's very much it's a nice return to home, I think, for us in a big way creatively. So
Yeah, well, I liked them. I mean,
they're
for
goofy.
the quick review, yeah. Well, I am goofy. Are you talking about the games or me?
The games, yeah,
All
yeah,
You're
right.
well, I
goofy,
Well,
James.
hey, well
If you
we
like those
match.
games,
no, yeah,
you're goofy.
I would never call a person goofy. Absolutely not. No, they're very fun games. They're short
They're
form.
high skill. They're high skill,
Yes.
and that's so. Here's the departure. When I've played, oh gosh, I don't know, like a stupid amount of mobile games, right? And your games don't fit with like when you think of a mobile game, like that's not what these are.
Yeah.
Like when you think of a mobile game, you think of in-app purchases, which these do have, but they're different like they're qualitatively different because the purchases typically don't add anything of value. But like if
Mhm.
you can do what's called buttering up the game, and that's
Mhm.
where you essentially like that's like I think it's like $3 in each app, and it basically unlocks like all of the features, and supports the devs, which is important. But you can still play these games for free, but they are like heavily skill based. I think a lot of games on mobile they rely too much on the like addictive casino mentality of like
Absolutely.
opening loot crates and things like that. And not that there aren't random aspects to your games, because that's part of the fun. That's
Mhm.
part of what generates fun, right?
Absolutely.
But instead of having like loot crates and things like that, you have like pretty linear progression, like in terms of upgrades and the ways that characters can get stronger.
Mhm.
And but they're hard. They're really difficult.
Yeah.
And I think there's a part of me that really enjoys that, because when I was growing up, the only games that existed were hard. Like even Mario
Yes.
was hard when
Yeah.
you're a kid and your hand-eye coordination isn't that good,
Absolutely. Yeah.
or um like anything developed in the 90s, like it's like games were not easy. And so I think a lot of these like match 3 games, and I've played many of them and I like some of them, like
Mhm.
they're not designed to be hard, they're designed to like flash and make noises and get you hooked.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah,
I,
it's
I
a
think
different
there's
kind of fun.
qualitatively different, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And our big thing is like, because I don't like outside of any predatory monetization practices, I don't have any particular
Yeah.
like I like all the games that there could be basically.
Okay, yeah.
But definitely when it comes to the things that we make, you're absolutely right that we said we looked at the mobile market and we were like, all of these games are a very certain kind, which is
Yeah.
they don't really ask a lot of you, to be honest, aside from occasionally trying to get you to give them money. Like that's where they put the ask.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we were like, okay, I mean, we want to eventually make games that are of the quality that they can be on console and on PC. So presumably the audience on mobile would enjoy an experience that is the same kind of thing as what you like. There's not necessarily a good reason why that wouldn't be the case.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so we just said, okay, yeah, let's build some games that are the same game that we would build if we were building this for the Switch, and then just put it on mobile, right? Um, and that's kind of been our ethos the whole time, which is we make a game, make sure that it sort of follows our code, which is just that it's really, really fun, kind of all the way through. That it has a lot of the sort of whimsical, goofy stuff going on. Um, can hook people, and depending on the game, like some of them have a higher. I think because of the game jams, the fastest way to make a enjoyable game is to make one that uses challenge as a big part of the fun mechanism, because you need less content if people take forever to burn through it. And then also like
Yeah.
there's a part of people that really enjoys that kind of arcadey feel, right?
Yeah.
Getting your skill improved over time. And so a lot of our games do, especially, I mean, Levelhead is a good example of that. Like that game it's a hard platformer. It's a precision platformer, no jokes about it. Like it's a very difficult game. You will die a lot playing it. And so it's not for everyone. Crashlands, on the other hand, is like much more approachable in terms of just like, you might die every so often, but it's not punishing in any sort of way like it is in something like Levelhead.
Yeah.
So we try to span the gamut a little bit, all that sort of stuff.
I will say, just anecdotally, my dad is on like level 1600 on Candy Crush.
Mm-hmm.
So he knows intimately the whole idea of them asking you like an easy game. I mean, 1600 levels. I don't even know how long he's played that game for.
That's a lot.
It's
yeah.
crazy.
Like my
Well, I think
brain
it-
can't fully grasp
Yeah.
that number.
Well, I mean, it depends on what kind of game you're making. I think in the case of, because we tried to do something similar with Levelhead in terms of longevity, where we were like, because what you see in something like Candy Crush is they're optimizing for turning their game experience into a hobby for you. And part of that is knowing
Yeah.
how much you're asking of someone and making sure that it's not. It's like if you're participating in like a bowling league or a book club or something like that. There's a reason the rules are the way they are. Because like if they were more intense, you wouldn't want to be there like
Yeah.
every other weekend. You know what I mean? Like you wouldn't want to read a book every month if they were like, we're going to quiz you on it too. You have to talk to the author directly and show them that you know what you're talking about. Like it allows people to get involved and like to establish it as a hobby. And so that's kind of where we're trying to go with our games in the future too. With Levelhead as the first kind of start at that, which is how do we make a game that people can enjoy as a hobby, like as a pastime? Where instead of saying like I play games, it's like I play Levelhead. It is the game I play to enjoy, my creative time.
Yeah, that's an interesting methodology. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Sam, I got a follow-up question for you. Maybe not a follow-up, but it's kind of a different tangent. But I want to talk a little bit about community. James has at least talked to me about this before we had you on. I haven't done a ton of research on it, but he was kind of talking to me about how you guys have made a point to make your community be fairly well moderated and non-toxic. I was just listening to the podcast How I Built This with the founders of Riot Games, who did League of Legends.
Ooh,
and
one for that.
Yeah, and I mean, even just talking to people who play League of Legends a lot, from what I understand, their community is rather toxic.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just wondering, like, how did you guys set that goal to have a good community, and then how do you maintain it? How do you keep it up?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those parts of one of the parts of the game dev sort of overall experience that a lot of people don't, especially as kids, you don't even think about like at all that this is a thing that the developers have to worry about getting death threats sometimes, or have to deal with people coming into the community and just being mean to each other.
So crazy.
Yeah, so I think a big part of it on our side is the reality is like you can set up whether or not your community and your culture is a place where that's okay. You can set that up very firmly up front. It is far harder after the fact, like 5 years into League of Legends being a dumpster fire, to like put the fire out. Like that's where you get people who now have been mad for 5 years and being mean, sort of burning each other with all this stuff, to now they just kind of point their flamethrowers your way. So we've had a very keen eye on it, and I think mainly because we see it as a almost like a social responsibility. Like I don't want it to be the case that if say a parent buys Levelhead for their kid, that I don't like, all of us are like, I don't want that kid to experience any level of harassment because our game just allowed people to like type in whatever they want for a name for themselves, for a name for like other levels, so that no matter what, like people would have to see it before it could be flagged and be thrown away. So it's just something we've done very purposefully. I think one, out of a sense of just it's gross, frankly. I'm tired of people putting up with it. Like I think it's absolutely bonkers that a company that has, now in the case of Riot, I mean, frankly, any of the big online companies that have pulled in a lot of money, keep on just saying like, oh, it's just such an intractable problem. No, it's not. It is not. It absolutely is not. You're just not putting in the energy at all to solve these things. And so it's really frustrating to see that.
Well, they
And
don't want to lose the money. It's kind of a hot balance where you got, if we kick these people off the platform, they're not going to spend any more money.
yeah, I
And
think the problem
they have the
is
data too.
Well, where's the responsibility, right? And so I guess
yes.
that's what you're talking about, Sam, with the community. And we talked to Squatting Dog on the podcast as well, and he's awesome. I don't know if you know him. He does a lot of Fortnite stuff. He's the one who kind of wrote like where you can complete all the challenges in Fortnite.
Cool. Yeah.
And he would post those to Reddit, and now he's a streamer. And so he's similarly developed this kind of well-moderated community of his own. It's like very helpful. People gift subs to each other all the time.
Yeah.
And I just found it incredibly welcoming. He's just like incredibly generous personality. And it's just his modus operandi to put community first, and you can tell when you're in his community, right? And you're right. I think it's so easy to set the tone as opposed to like put out the fire later, because that was his mindset from the beginning. So I think you're right. And,
yeah. Well, I think a lot of people I think feel like it's a thing that if they don't want to engage, like that you can just say I'm not bothering with this. Like it's the community can run itself. Like I'm not going to touch it. But I mean, all you're actually saying is like I'm perfectly fine with this becoming a hive of villainy. Like because that's literally what happens every single time. Because the people who leave when bad things happen are the people who basically are good people who don't want to be putting up with that stuff, right? So over time, all you are ever going to see in an unmoderated community or a loosely moderated one is just literally just a descent into a venomous sort of place. And so yeah, we put up rules ahead of time. We make sure that like it's just not going to be a thing for us to worry about.
Yeah, I like it. We lost James for a second, so
I was gonna say, is he here?
I'm good. I'm back. Sorry,
He's
I got
back.
frozen like a weird
his
position.
webcam issue.
Yep.
I've
Well,
had that, but
I've got another
good.
question for you, Sam. From what I understand, I don't know everything about your background, but I read at least your bio, and it kind of seems like you're not. Maybe you can tell me yes or no, but it seems like you were not originally like an artist.
No.
Is that
That's a
true?
hard no.
But the stuff that you create is awesome.
Thank you.
And so again, thinking from a kid's perspective, how did you, or maybe not a kid, but maybe someone who's 18, 20, who is pursuing some kind of other path. Actually, I used to be a teacher, and I had a conversation with one of my students the other day, and he just graduated from high school. He's going to community college. He's trying to figure it out. And he's like, yeah, I'm in pre-calculus. I really suck at it. I'm trying to figure out what to do. And I was like, well, you could, I was telling him like, you should consider trade school, because in trade school, you can learn a lot of different things. You could even go the path of digital art if you wanted. But like, how did you pick up that skill at a later age? And then also like, do you acknowledge your abilities in art, or do you feel like you still suffer from maybe an imposter syndrome that I'm sure you had at the beginning?
Oh yeah, no, I think I'll get to that part. That's a whole saga in and of itself. No, I think
tell us the full story.
Yeah, I guess so my story is it's kind of a weird one. I think when it comes to the point of like in the case of your student, not necessarily liking pre-calculus. For me, I've never been the best at practice. Never ever. I did band, I played trombone, I was in choir, did sports, but practice has never been remotely interesting to me, literally at all. I think what changed for me was finding an in a way that actually was far more interesting to me than just like saying I'm going to practice art so I can make good art, which again, boring. Like I can't do it. I'm sorry, it's just not gonna work for me. So actually, I got my start doing art by actually very sideways. I took a design class in college, and the professor liked me a lot, and so the day the class ended, we were walking in the hall, and he offered me a part-time job working on websites for the university. And I was like, I don't know how to code. And he was like, you can teach yourself, buy a book, and go get paid like $8 an hour to do these stupid things for the administrators when they're like, oh, we want to change the text on this website that's built in this hideous old PHP, backend thing. Go figure. He's like, they just need someone who they can ask to do stuff, even if it takes you like a week to figure it out. It's fine. And so that gave me the leeway to start exploring web tech stuff. So I actually built websites then for the university over the course of these 2 years. Ended up working for that professor in his kind of department the next year. And through that, I ended up kind of like we talked about with this design problem. Sometimes I needed a piece of art for these. I needed to make a logo for some internal thing inside the university. I built this system for the medical school students to be able to compare their MCAT and GMAT, their MCAT and GPAs to like where people had gone from the school before to see reasonably where could I actually get into school? What quartile am I in? That tool ended up being shut down because apparently a lot of kids got very addicted to it, where they were like, tweaking the numbers a little bit just to see like, okay, if I get like this much more, can I get into this school? This sort of thing, which I thought was hilarious. But I got to develop that skill there, and through that needed to just make some pieces of art. So it started off literally with like, I think one of my logos in the beginning was a triangle with another triangle next to it. Watch out, some mind-blowing stuff, right? Went from there to then, of course, I had making slightly more advanced stuff like some buttons and things. Was doing all this in a free vector program called Inkscape, which is what we use to make all of the games up until our current project. So Levelhead is still made in that same program. And slowly just kind of like when we did my first game jam, I needed to make some art assets. When Seth and I started working together, we literally flipped a coin because he had been programming then for about 2 years, self-taught as well, or I guess about a year. And he was actually better at programming and at art at the beginning. So we were like, well, we need to specialize. So who's doing what? So it was literally one of those things we were like, I don't know. And he was like, I'll program. I was like, okay, I guess I have to do art now. And so then it was just, it's just years of, 40 hours, 60-hour work weeks, just doing art. The problem was I was kind of mad about it, honestly, for like 5 years. I'm not even kidding, like up until 2018. It's five years. We started into 2012. I think because I viewed it as a thing that I was kind of just doing to be able to do the design part. Because actually, I love design, my favorite thing. But I never was really giving art its due. I was sort of just every asset that we needed to get put in the game, I would make it as quickly as possible. When someone would ask me to change it, I'd be like, absolutely not. You're gonna have to deal with it. I'm sorry, just gotta figure it out. Just make it squish more. Put an explosion over top of it if you need to mask it.
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with it. And
it
really was
are great.
Honestly, explosions are like the best animation transition ever. You just mask it, don't even worry. But it really was. It was like 2 years ago when, after another game jam, I had sort of like a breakdown. And I was trying to draw some leaves, literally some leaves, like for a tile, a jungle tile. And I made something and it was like, you guys, it was just the ugliest. Colors were terrible. The shapes were just, the whole thing was just very ugly. And I was like, how am I still here? 5 years I've been doing this and I can't make a pile of leaves look good. And I just lost it, like really full blown, like, and I was talking to Adam and Seth about it. And I think it was Seth who said something along the lines of like, why would you expect that you'd be able to draw a pile of leaves if you have never drawn a pile of leaves before? He was like, you haven't practiced that? Like you didn't look up anything about how to do that? Why don't you take just like a student mindset and just approach these things with some good curiosity and just start like, how do I draw a pile of leaves instead of just going and trying, making some hideous marks. And that really kicked off for me the last, frankly now, I guess about 3 years of actually trying on the art side. So you guys haven't seen any of it yet, but like a lot of my newer stuff that's coming up for this upcoming project it's like miles above. I could just say it's literally miles above what the stuff I've been able to produce in the past, because I finally got it. I was like, oh, I'm doing this every day. Like, why can't I enjoy it? Why can't I be curious about it? Why can't I feel those skills ratcheting up in the way that I see my brothers seeing their skills ratchet up? Um, so the imposter syndrome was huge for those first 5 years
Mm.
because it was true in the sense that I was like, I don't even want to be, I hardly want to be doing this, right? Like I'm doing it so I can do the other thing. But really that was a defense mechanism, because it was that thing where it's like, well, I mean, if no one likes it, then it's not like I was trying super hard.
Yeah.
Mm.
And that sort of self-handicapping bit was something that, like, frankly, I think that's sort of what I dealt with. That's like been a thing for me. It's one of my Achilles heels. And so overcoming that has led to a bunch of these breakthroughs on the art side. And been having a really good time now. I think for anybody who hasn't gotten into a particular thing that they've been like trying to get into, I think it's all about finding the avenue to get in. My brother Seth's tried to learn game development by picking up a C++ book. He still has the book, hasn't read more than like 3 pages because it's terrible, right?
I know.
Self-teaching C++ is the worst, but he thought that's what he had to do. He took programming classes, did not do well, right? So like, just if there's something you really want to try to do, if you haven't gotten it to go via some of these more conventional means, try a different approach. For me, game jams got me into making video games. I don't think if I had gone to like school for it, I don't think if I'd tried to get into a AAA studio or anything like that, I don't think I'd be doing it today.
Mm.
It's got to be a very specific type of approach.
I want to ask you a little bit about that family dynamic. You don't see a lot of these studios that are like 3 brothers,
Yeah, yeah.
and a sister-in-law, and so how does that work? Is it? I was listening to the podcast, just 2 episodes. I mean, you have 296, 97, I guess,
There's a
pretty
lot,
soon here.
lot of research to do there.
Yeah, I was like, wait a sec, I literally can't do all the research.
He listened
Like,
to all
there's
of
too
them.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
10x
And
speed.
I was
Mhm.
having a lot of fun, and I listen to podcasts on 2x speed typically, and I had to put it back down to 1 because everybody's talking, and there's so much to think about, and there's so many ideas that y'all present, and like the philosophy of breaks, and marketing and
Mhm.
all this stuff. And I thought, man, they're having so much fun. Is it when you were in the office? This is a little bit of a coronavirus question. But when you were in the office, was it hard to get stuff done sometimes because you'd go on tangents and have fun talking, or
I
like,
mean, yes, of course, but I think that's sort of the, it's part of the thing you plan for, because the reality is, and this is actually we've been trying to tackle, like literally as of this week, is saying,
Hmm.
can we get a bit more of that chaos back in here with the remote stuff? So we've actually been working like while screen sharing the whole time this past
Oh,
couple days. Um,
take that,
Mainly for like,
Comcast.
yeah, so mainly Seth and I for like the since we directly collaborate on the games themselves, but actually like our biggest insight yesterday, like our biggest big sort of game improvement came from Adam. Happened to be hanging out in there because he was waiting around for me so he could fix an art pipeline problem. So he was just hanging out in there while we were all doing our thing, and then Seth had finished making some bullets in the game, and Adam just asked a simple question about it, and it kicked off this like just bigger and bigger, bigger until we were like, oh, cool, here's this big like overall stylization effect we can do for the game. Solve this problem that I've had with it for months, like since we incepted it. I couldn't figure out how to do this thing. And so we I think that the thing at the heart of all the stuff we do is that we love to play, and I mean that in the sense of like with ideas, with when we're talking to each other, there's almost none of this like shutdown thing going on that you see, I think, in a lot of conversations. Um, if someone throws out an idea, we'll at least carry it a little bit before we put it back down. It's not going to be like, I'm just like, you don't get to participate. Don't
Yeah.
say that. Don't even go there. And does that typically mean that you fly off the rails, or talk about the definition of a single word that someone asked you in their question on the podcast for like 30 minutes instead of getting to the question? Yes. But also I think it's what gives us a bunch of our special sauce when it comes to making good stuff at the end of the day.
Is it hard to work with your brothers in some ways?
No,
Or
honestly,
your brothers are just pretty chill.
yeah. I mean, they're both. That's the thing is like, they're both great people. Like it's one of those things where like I've just always enjoyed being around them. So it's never been an issue in terms of like, I know for a lot of people the idea of being sort of stuck with your family day in day out would be a lot. Which of course the pandemic has lovingly placed us all in a situation like that.
Yeah.
But I think we somehow managed to, if we don't agree with each other as far as how that other person kind of operates or like carries themselves, we can at least see the respect and see the value in it. It's very easy to disagree, but say like that's still cool. If you're more like, I'm a bit louder than both Adam and Seth are. Adam's a bit more studious, and so we all have our slightly different ways of like kind of handling the world. But I think it's just that we appreciate the value that comes from that divergent viewpoint as opposed to getting mad about it all the time.
I want to ask you a question that's kind of meta. What are your feelings about like K-12 education in the United States or college education in the United
Coming
States?
in
Like,
hot with all the
I'm
intense
just
questions.
wondering from the perspective. Look, game design and having a
wanna know
game
too.
studio is one
Oh,
of
yeah.
the most unique industries, I think, in the whole country.
Weird thing.
And like you said, it requires a lot of technical skills. Most of those technical skills are not actually taught in schools.
Right.
And maybe they shouldn't be. I don't know. But what are your kind of thoughts having gone through, I assume, the public education system?
Yeah,
Me and James are products of the public education system. Went to
I was
college.
in choir too, but not really
And
sports.
the interesting thing is that we went to. I was in choir too.
Look at that.
What would you guys
Anyway,
say? What was
let's do
your
it.
what was your
Let's
voice?
do
Oh
a
my
trio.
gosh.
That was a bass one.
Let's sing a song. But I don't know. I studied political science. James studied history, and here we are doing Coder Kids.
Yeah, I mean, I studied
I know
psych
that-
and built websites randomly.
Yeah, and your brother was like finance or something.
Yeah, so Seth was doing that JD MBA program and has a CFA. He's a chartered
Yeah.
financial analyst. And then Adam
Yeah.
has a PhD in molecular biology. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
as far as the roots here, we're all coming in sideways,
Yeah. So
100%.
let's talk about what do you think? Like, have your feelings about the education system changed at all, or is it just is what it is?
I mean, I think it's so I mean, I think there's an important note here, which is that all three of us in the last year have been diagnosed with ADHD as adults, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good thing to keep in mind, which is that dealing with being able to just focus on a thing because people told you to is a difficult thing for anybody, but it's a nigh impossible task if you have something like ADHD going on. That said, all of us, like, we all did well in school, but I think the place where to me is a letdown is where you're not actually given the freedom as a student to develop that curiosity about a subject, where it's very much like on a very guided path. And I get that the reality is that there's details and there's subject matters for which it's hard to get a different approach in that allows people to play with the material, to like do their own thing with it, to experiment and to develop that creative capacity. I think it's just hard to do in a public school setting, to be honest, because like you're trying to just push all these people through the whole thing. But that really, to me, leads to the bigger problem, which is like when you get to the college level. I mean, college costs so much money now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it costs a lot. I was in school, I guess, 10 years ago. Making me feel ancient. Yeah. So I was in school 10 years ago. It was ridiculously expensive at that time. It is so expensive to go to these to go to educational institute now, and so it's almost this, beyond even getting to the value that you're getting out of it. It's sort of asking the questions about student loans and all that other stuff that just gets annoying. But as far as like the educational capacity, when it comes to some of these creative industries, you have to understand that like what allows someone to do really good work in a creative field is not what is taught in your traditional schooling programs. It just isn't. So, because what's rewarded in those contexts, and it's hitting the known mark. Where else in the world is that what you actually get, points for? Like once you actually, graduate and you're in the real world, even if you have like what you call a normal job, just hitting the mark is oftentimes like, you hope that someone said it appropriately and did their research and stuff for it before they give you the task, but it's not clear. It's never clear if you're doing the right thing, if you're doing it well. You don't have good feedback in place once you get into the real world. Again, regardless of the position you're in, creative or not. And so I think, to me, that the lack of preparation on that side is what I find frustrating. how do you actually deal with complete ambiguity? When I say to you, hey, we're going to take a product to market in 2 years' time, it's going to be the work of a team of 6 people who you have to keep alive with money for the entire duration. The product needs to make enough money to make another one, which means it needs to bring in basically 4 years worth of revenue in order for the team to kind of like survive. You will not know the state of the
high
market
school
before
definitely
you write.
doesn't prepare you for that.
Yeah, right. It's like they basically being able to deal with that ambiguity, because I think that's, to me, even the questions of like how do you get started in a craft later in life. I think the problem is like we push the ability to operate in that ambiguous space out as we get older. It gets more and more about results, and I think the reality is like improving in a craft takes a long time, and it has this spiky, stupid waveform to it where you're just like, some days you're just terrible again for no reason. And you're slowly moving up, and it's not clear exactly where this is going to end up. And I think being okay with that is really hard. And I don't think that the educational programs prepare students in an effective way for that. I don't know if there is, besides just having them do stuff. Like if you want your kid to actually get into games, have them do a game jam over a weekend. Like you'll build a video game in 48 hours. You'll know if it's for you or not if you get hooked. There's ways to kind of get at it that way, but traditional stuff is a little more difficult.
Quick question about the game jam. You said that there was one, or that you did one this weekend.
Yeah, we actually just did the.
Does that mean that there's a new little game that's going to come out?
There is a little ugly something, I'll call it. So speaking to this, actually, this thing, we traditionally work in 2D. We work in an engine called Game Maker. For this jam, we were like, let's make something bad. Let's see what happens if we're working a new tool in 3D. So I've only done like an hour and a half of tutorials in 3D 2 years ago in Blender. So over the weekend, we were like, let's go. So Seth got Unity, I got Blender, and we made this. Actually, it didn't turn out too bad. It's a fun game. Got some ugly stuff going on, but it's fun. Made this ugly little game called Do You Even Airlift, which is you play as basically, it's essentially a helicoptering game. Plays a helicopter pilot picking up people and dropping them back off at an HQ, but the helicopter is a giant pig creature, because that's what you get.
Because you can.
Do you even airlift, bro?
Yeah, so we'll put that up on our itch page. All of our jam games are up there, so we'll put that up sometime next week.
That's fun.
That's awesome.
James, do you want to wrap it up with Sam? We got one more question.
Yeah, I mean, we are. So this is a plug for the camp that we're gonna do. We're gonna do a Levelhead camp over the summer camp.
Try to do a Levelhead camp.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
You never know in our industry if people are going to sign up.
Well, it takes 2 to sign up, and then I can assign myself as the instructor because I don't have to pay myself. That's always a struggle when you're trying to pay other people and juggle all these moving parts and meet needs in the market. And I think I asked a bunch of Minecraft kids like, "Hey, would you guys be interested in this? This cool game where you make, levels and it's a platformer?" And they're like, "What's a platformer?" And I was like, "Okay." They're like,
"Whatever.
We're not interested." Like they just didn't answer. They didn't say we're not interested. They was just like dead silence.
They just don't know. They just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, peeling people off Minecraft.
I'll sign up for the class.
Jeff will sign up. I'll teach it. So, I'm super excited about it. Why have you gone to make games like kid friendly and like approachable? I mean, a lot of your games are, I find, just incredibly difficult, which I like. That's something that a lot of your player base really enjoys, is like, there's a word, I think it's Japanese, kaizo, right? Which is like insane precision, very difficult, like one-up kind of movement. What's a way, like, why do you make games kid friendly and like approachable, and what's the kind of ethic? Is it like a moral stance? Do you want to provide games for everyone? Is it kind of like a marketing thing? Like, what's your philosophy there?
I think because for all of us, our general directive and our understanding of what games are to us is that it's similar to when you find a really good show, where if we've done our job correctly, we want to provide a place that you can kind of escape into for however long you need, you know, because the world out there will buffet you, like, rub you raw quite a bit. And so if we could produce this little container where people can come in and experience this, essentially this an accessible challenge that can have a skill cap that is, in the case of Levelhead, so high, that you can spend, like, we have people who spent literally thousands of hours building and playing levels in that game. If we can provide that sort of a container for you to, basically a bunker, for you to step into, then we're happy. And so I think so much of that, then what that goal is, gets echoed into the content of the games, right? Because, like, the reason we make whimsical stuff is exactly for that reason. Like, if the joke we used to have about Crashlands is that we would measure its success based on the measure of, like, slight exhales of breath that people get out while they're reading the text, right? They're like, that sort of thing. How many of those can we get out of someone, right? Like, I'm not going for, at the time, like, we weren't necessarily going for, like, the most ridiculous emotional experience you've had. Just like, I just want you to have a really good time, and I want you to feel that the whole time. And so I think the fastest way to move away from that is to make something that has a more edgy opinion about things, So we tend to that's why we tend to stay in the zone we stay in, which is like, if you're an adult and you're playing our games, we want to hit sort of like that. Basically, Pixar has a thing going on where, like,
Oh my gosh, I was gonna say Pixar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're an adult and you're reading it, you get a lot more of what's going on than
the corporate humor is strong.
Yes.
Yeah. So, like, Levelhead, the instructional stuff. Do you voice that stuff?
I do. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I thought you did.
Yes.
You got to deliver the goods real good, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
And you have, like, several games that are about, like, a shipping company.
Yeah, it's all in the same universe. So it's like sort of our Marvel MCU situation,
except that it's a shipping company.
It's a shipping company, yeah. The Bureau of Shipping, and it's just like, it's sort of like all their, just what you understand as an adult is that, like, what we're making fun of, like, I guess corporate culture is sort of our target, right? Like, if we're picking a thing to pick on, like, that's it. Because I think, I don't know, I mean, we've all managed, I think, to both via luck and privilege and skill land ourselves in a position where, like, we love what we do every day. And while also knowing that, like, the experiences we've had, as well as the experiences that our friends have, in corporate America, is not necessarily so good. And so I think it's a very easy target. It's one that very few people would disagree with. You know what I mean? Like, as far as satire,
business managers would probably find it funny. Like, it's really not offensive to any audience, I don't think.
Yeah.
But I love the corporation, please.
Right? Yeah. So they're the easy target to pick on. So we're picking on them. But I think it's one of those things where, if you're an adult playing our games, we want you to be able to get a little bit more out of it. Of course, it's like they're not actually for kids. I think this is the weird thing we've always tried to figure out how to talk about them, because it's like they're not for kids, but they're not for kids. Like, kids will be able to totally enjoy them. But they have enough going on where, if you're an adult, if you're a working adult, if you're 50, like, if you play this game, you're gonna have a good time, and you're gonna be, like, at least chuckling a bit about some stuff, if not a lot, hopefully.
So, James, I guess
That's
this is the
awesome.
lesson. The Levelhead is actually E for everyone, and we need to actually make the summer camp
50-year-olds.
we need to market to 50-year-olds.
Blow that audience wide open.
Fine. I think I'm gonna teach this class personally, so I'm gonna
retirees.
Yeah, I think I'm going to teach this class personally. I think it'll be a bunch of fun to have some different age groups. Who knows? It'll be fun.
It'd be fun.
So, Sam,
for
if
sure.
you had to give, like, a little, 30-second pep talk toward what are some things you'd say about just, like, basic level design and kind of being excited to flex their creative muscles, since that's what you do?
Yeah, I think you should judge yourself less harshly than you're going to be coming into it with. Everything is garbage before it is not garbage. It just starts as trash. And so iteration, like, how fast you can make those decisions about, like, what happens next, tuning up pieces, playing it, that's where all the magic comes in. And so for me, my general formula for, like, all of the Levelhead levels, the 93 that are in the campaign, was oftentimes to sit down with a sheet of paper to say, I actually handwrite out like what the experience is that I want a person to have playing it. And then I'll pick a constricted set of elements. I'll say like, okay, I'm just going to use like these 5 things in this power up because there's like 100 things you can choose from, right? But we don't need all that. We just need these 5. What can I do with these 5 that's weird? Might go make a little test project, play around in there, find something fun about it. Once I know what I want to do, then I kind of write out almost like a story. Because that's essentially, when you're building a level, you're actually just building a story that someone plays through, right? So what emotions are they experiencing at what points? And then with the tools you have, how do you make that happen? So if I want you to be like, if I want you to be scared at some point, then maybe I'll drop a floor, like when you finally land on a platform and it's like, and the floor's gone, and now you're falling into a hole, right? And so there's ways you can sort of plot out the emotional beats of it, and then match the mechanics to it. And I think that's a much easier approach than trying to just be like, I'm going to make a level. What does that mean? That means a billion different things, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Well, it is interesting to hear you talk about the planning, because even when we're doing basic games like Scratch games, I don't know if you've heard of, if you played with Scratch and all, but when we're building Scratch games, I often encourage kids to take a second and map out their game, map out their plans, and it's often reviled. People don't love to do the planning portion, but I think you're exactly right. And I think also to your point about iteration, I guess I'm how I built this junkie, but yesterday I was listening to a podcast about with M. Night Shyamalan, and he was talking about how he never considers any of the movies that he did to be failures. Or like any of the processes that he goes through, he just says they're iterations. So it's just like iterate. And that's his mindset to it. And so I love hearing you as someone who designs these games to say like the first level is always crap. Like the first thing that you do is always crap.
Always garbage.
You just have to keep iterating at it, keep building at it. And I think it's a great lesson for the parents and kids who are listening to this.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key is to know what you're trying to get out of it. Because also you have to recognize that you're here building this level. So it's not just about the player. What do you want? Like, do you want to put a bunch of fireballs in here today? Is that what we're feeling? Feeling a little spicy, Are you just unsure how to think about like paths in the switch system in this game? Like, what do you want to explore? Ask like, what are you going to get at it? We do this for our games. Literally, like our projects we work on for 2 years. Levelhead, the goal was, can we make something that a lot of people will sign up for our web stuff, and we could build all sorts of weird web tech. That was one of the seeding ideas that spawned Levelhead, right? You still got to get something out of it at the end of the day. And so I think knowing that piece too helps to kind of pair those two. What's your audience getting? What are you getting? And between that's sort of where the good stuff is.
That's awesome.
Well, excellent. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. It was a bunch of fun.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Good to meet you.
Butterscotch Shenanigans has their own podcast. We'll put the link in that below, and any kind of contact information. We'll also link to your Discord server where there's a community that you're building there. Is there anywhere else that you'd like people to reach out?
That's all good. If you're hopping in the Discord, that's usually where we're hanging out. So,
well, Sam, we're gonna hit you up
buy the games
when we get 100 kids in this summer camp. We're gonna hit you up to come and give them a pep talk.
I would expect no less. So,
sounds good. All right,
thanks, Sam.
Thanks so much.
Good to talk to you.
Thanks so much.